Welcome, gamers and gamerettes, to the first Monkey Games cast with the highly intelligent Ramses the Rad, joined by mildly beloved gaming YouTuber, formerly gaming YouTuber, current Schizo fanatic,
Okay.
the Sneezing Monkey, otherwise known as Monkey Games, otherwise known as that one Scandinavian guy who single-handedly ruined Rooster Teeth
I
10
want
years
to I want to start this off
ago.
with where we currently are with Ubisoft, okay? Because here's the thing. I wanted to do this video for a while. I wanted to talk about Ubisoft, and if you wouldn't be here, I would have done it by myself. But I've been covering Ubisoft for so long on my other channel and on this channel that it's like it's accumulated. Like there's so much history behind the company that I felt I want to do a video that reflects on all the elements that led to the downfall of the company. And I know, a lot of people are probably going to comment and they're going to be like, well, the company's not downfallen yet, and they have still how many 15,000 employees or whatever the current number is. It's a huge company, and they might not downfall at all. They might sell to Tencent. Maybe they're just selling off a bunch of IPs. But I think Ubisoft has almost reached a point of no return.
Yeah.
When it comes to their reputation. But it has to be said, right? Because obviously it's inspired by the current wave that's going around. That's all built around Assassin's Creed Shadows. Assassin's Creed Shadows gets good reviews. Overall, the game, and I've put it on screen here, it gets like 9 out of 10s, 8 out of 10s. It sits on average at an 8. It gets
And
lots of
this
positive.
is by like who though? This is by like industry like shit like IGN, which I think in my opinion like nobody cares
No,
about
no, it's not
you know?
just like it's Tech Radar, it's Eurogamer is 4 out of 5. I haven't seen a single
I think
review of this game from a big outlet or any outlet for that matter that had it at like a 2 or 3 or something where they're like, this is a
yeah,
terrible
that's
game.
true. That's true. No one is saying that it's, fair.
But beyond, so again, I'm not here to take apart Assassin's Creed Shadows. It's probably a good game. I haven't played it. I have just no hype for it. I really don't want to play it, and the videos I see, they do nothing for me. But if
Understandable.
people like it, they can like it, right? But the bigger
Yeah.
point is, in 2023, they had a net loss of 494 million euros. Think
Oh my
about
god.
that. And that was 2023. At that time, it seems like it wasn't as bad as it is now, right? There were just recently hints towards bankruptcy in
Yeah.
2025,
Yeah,
where
for
people were speculating that they might actually go bankrupt. But as I said, like the downfall and the struggles of this company can't be put down to one specific moment. So what I want to do is I want to break down a few pivotal moments in the history of Ubisoft where it was like, okay, there they messed up, and almost go back to the 2010s,
Okay.
and
Back
break this
when back
down.
when gaming was good.
Back when gaming was good, and that's actually a perfect transition into what I want to start with, which is back when Ubisoft was good. I want
Yeah.
to do a little bit of a nostalgic moment. What are your Ubisoft games that you remember and you're like, that was a
Oh,
great game, peak Ubisoft.
all right. I will. Okay, first thing when I said back when gaming was good, that is a joke. I'm just gaming has always anyway. Point is, Ubisoft to me, the way I've tracked how well that company does is through Assassin's Creed. But I think to quickly answer your question, what I think is peak Ubisoft, I think it's Assassin's Creed 2, Far Cry 3, uh, and honestly, yeah, I'll say those two games to me exemplify the best of Ubisoft. Assassin's Creed 2, I mean, it is almost cliche. It's kind of like saying like Blade Runner is your favorite sci-fi movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just cliche to say that it's your favorite Assassin's Creed, but it was my second Assassin's Creed. My first Assassin's Creed was Assassin's Creed 3, which in my opinion, I know I mean it's not controversial. It is a good game. It's not great, but it is a very good game about Assassin's Creed 3 in my opinion. Um, but Far Cry 3, I remember playing that game, and when you really distill what Far Cry 3 is the gameplay mechanics of Far Cry 3, it's very repetitive, but it's fun, and till this day, it looks beautiful, and the story is, dare I say, genuinely good. Like your protagonist evolves, and doesn't go from being like this loser to being an even cooler loser.
Yeah.
Uh, and there's a slight, choice. I'm not gonna. Well, a spoiler warning for the 12-year-old game. You can choose whether or not to kill your friends and stick with the woman that then kills you, or to save everyone. But y- it to me just exemplified what Ubisoft was, or what I thought it is, which is good story with interesting mechanics, with a good open world. And obviously, the downfall, I guess, of Ubisoft was always there. You always had the what's it called, checklist gaming, I believe,
Mm.
or just map clutter. Quite infamously, I have very distinct memories of trying to 100% Assassin's Creed 3 and all those fucking feathers that I never got and came very close. I think I did lose one controller out of sheer rage.
Yeah.
But they did manage to make it fun, and in Assassin's Creed 4, I can't forget Assassin's Creed 4. I think I'm trying to keep it one game per franchise, and I'll have to pick Assassin's Creed 2 over 4. But they did make it fun in 4 instead of feathers. I think they actually kept feathers, but they did put sea shanties. But yeah,
Yeah.
I think I'll say Far Cry 3 and Assassin's Creed 2 are peak Ubisoft for me. And a serious and very loud honorable mention to Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag. So yeah.
Yeah, so it's interesting, right? Because both of these games, Assassin's Creed 2 and Far Cry 3, they created almost, they were the games where they really created this formula that later then almost became their downfall. Do you know what I mean? Like
100%.
Far Cry 3
100%.
felt fresh. The way it was a big step up from Far Cry 2, right? Which was this Africa
For sure.
theme thing, which I also enjoyed. I know
Did you
it had a few flaws.
did you
Um,
play Far Cry 2?
yeah, oh yeah. I went here in London to the shop on release day and bought it at that time
Wow. Okay,
because
fair,
I was
fair.
so
I
hyped.
played it.
Um, I,
I played it. I got it after playing 3, and my God, all I remember was the controls being so janky, dude.
yeah.
Holy fuck.
It was more
But yeah.
janky, and that's why 3 felt so good, right? The open world was more coherent. What I really loved about it, Far Cry 3, that being like, it had such a simplistic story that worked really well. So you come to this island, you've lost
Yeah.
all your friends,
True.
and you got to bring your
Yeah.
friends back, right? It's almost a little bit like Mass Effect 2, where you assemble this team, and now you have to go to
Okay.
location, and bring one
Yeah, I
member
think that.
at a time. And it's the same there. You have to assemble your friends and bring them back. Also, it introduced the villain, right? It introduced
Awesome.
the
Yeah.
Vars as like the
Legendary.
iconic villain of Far Cry, which then later, I believe, maybe not in this Stone Age one, whatever that was, like they did Primal, right?
Oh
Far Cry
yeah.
Primal. Not sure that had a villain, but all of the other follow-up games had a villain, and it all
The,
stems back to Far Cry
the
3.
villain. The villain was fracking.
Yeah,
2000.
yeah. So,
The Koch brothers. But yeah.
right. So, Far Cry 3 released in 2012. Assassin's Creed 2 released in 2010. So that
10,
was
yeah.
still like prime Ubisoft. It felt like they were just one of the big players, right? They were a big company. They produced these games that people really loved. Another honorable mention I want to put forward: 2010, a game came out that I played. It's called Ruse. Ruse. I
Oh,
don't know if you recall that. It's a strategy game, a real-time strategy game. And what was kind of cool about that game was that you had audio controls. That was the first time I've ever seen this, and to be honest, the last
oh,
time.
okay.
So you could mark your group, your team, right? And you could say, "Team 4, move to frontline" or something, literally into your microphone, and then they would
Wow.
move. And it was like magic almost, right? To see the groups or the teams on the players on your team moving by you using voice
Yeah.
control. Ruse was not a particularly good game, but it had this element that was somewhat innovative at the time. And I remember this was 2010, right? So I remember this 15 years ago. I sat in my room, I used my microphone. It's like, oh my God, they move when I talk. So that was cool. But then going through the timeline, 2012, Rayman Origins.
Okay.
That's a good game. That was also like just a great platformer. The graphics
Yeah.
so beautiful. Like it
Yeah.
worked so well. And then I think like 2 years later, they already released the next one. So Rayman Legends came out 2013. Okay, so literally just 1 year later, which is insane to think about that, right? That Origins comes out in 2012, and then 1 year later they release Rayman Legends, the second one. So those were great games as well. Obviously, 2013, you already said, Black Flag, right? That
Yeah.
was peak.
I'll also, just to add to your point, Assassin's Creed Brotherhood and Assassin's Creed Revelations were also released in the same year.
Yeah.
Uh, if I remember correctly, Brotherhood was in March and of 2011, and then Revelations was in November or something like that. Which I guess is fair because Revelations is pretty much just like a reskin of 3, except with and again, this is also another part. I guess going back to what Ubisoft uh, would try to do is in Revelations they added the hook blade.
Hmm.
If you remember that one, where you could use it to go further, and they also went further in the like whole, I guess, team defense that they did in Brotherhood.
I also want to give like a little bit of an honorable mention, and that is probably as controversial as you saying that Assassin's
Mm.
Creed 3 was good, which is objectively wrong, but fine,
No, it's
it's
good.
it's a
It's
free
good.
it's a free
It's good.
country and all that. So,
It's,
and that is a Splinter Cell Blacklist, and also Splinter Cell Conviction. Lots of people hated it because it went more down the action route and all that, and like I enjoyed it. I thought they were both fun games. I enjoyed Blacklist, and I also enjoyed Conviction.
I actually distinctly remember how bad of a reception these Splinter Cells games got. Um, but yeah, unfortunately, that's all I remember. I never played Splinter Cell. I wasn't.
No, you didn't even
I
play the first ones, like.
No, because when I Tom Clancy, for me, I always just view Tom Clancy games, and this is 100% Young Ramsey's my bad, but I view them kind of as like there was a certain kind of box art that immediately was revolting to me, that I felt like this game was going to be bad. And unfortunately, a lot of Tom Clancy games, I just didn't care for the box art. So
Wow.
yeah,
So you don't
yeah,
try the game because the box art. Dude, I'm not gonna lie, at that time I pirated most games, allegedly.
sure. Oh yeah,
Allegedly.
allegedly, yeah.
And dude, I didn't even see the box art except for like a little thumbnail on some pirate site.
See,
So
that's the thing. Like that was a whole era in gaming, and the death of physical media. I get it. Everything has to evolve, but that was like a whole era where you're picking games just off the. That's why I got Far Cry 3, because,
mm.
I mean, this is a whole different discussion, but the uniqueness of the box art, dude, Voss with like the decapitated head,
That
and
wasn't
he's just,
decapitated. What are you talking about? You're
or it
dug
was the
into the
sand.
sand. You're dug into the sand
Yeah,
up to your neck. You're not
but to
decapitated.
me, I thought it was
Okay,
decapitated.
fair enough.
So how he's like casually sitting there, and like even, dude, and then even the advertising with the like real life actor and oh god, Ubisoft was really just like something else, man, in my opinion. Like,
But at the
but
same
yeah,
time, you could already see at the time like the writing on the wall. So 2012, first of all, 2014, Assassin's Creed Unity came out with this extremely buggy launch. Okay,
yeah,
like
yeah.
that was a big pivotal moment. That's the first pivotal moment I think where
Yeah, I
it's
agree.
like, ooh, that was not good. There was a little bit of a
That's a
stain
fuck
on
up.
their white vest at this
That's a
point.
real fuck up.
That
Yeah,
was a big F up because it really also it spawned memes and it was just a really buggy
yeah.
launch. Later they
I
cleaned it
still
up.
remember. I
Yeah.
still remember. Like, do you remember the eyes? Like, no face,
Yes.
the eyes, and just the teeth. I still
Yes.
remember.
It's so iconic, right? And to be honest, you think
Yeah.
about Unity, that's what you think about now, right? You look
Yeah, and
back
it's
and
so sad because like it has the cleanest parkour in the whole fucking franchise, and it looks beautiful and it plays beautiful. And you know, wild for a series called Assassin's Creed, but it was the first one to actually introduce like sneaking. So
mm,
like such a shame, but
mm.
yeah.
So they messed that up. Then 2012, the Watch Dogs trailer was shown at E3, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
that was the winning trailer of that E3, I would almost say.
for sure. Yeah. I mean,
Right?
I don't remember 2013, but man, the Watch Dogs trailer was, yeah, man, it was something else.
It was like it promised this GTA like world with hacking
Mhm.
elements, and it just everything looked really pristine and beautiful. So that Watch Dogs trailer really sold it. And
And
and again, at that time, hopes were high. This is a Ubisoft game. How could it be
oh yeah.
awful? You know what I mean? But then
Mhm.
2014, the game released 2 years after
Yeah.
that trailer,
Mhm.
and boy, oh boy.
Yeah. I played that game and I never finished it. I think I played the last level I remember was the level where you, spoiler warning, but no one's fucking playing this game anymore. But like there's a mission where you cut the power to the whole city. You're like at this party, and then like you're at the balcony and you're like, all right, cut it. And you cut the power, and like literally I mean it's like a JPEG or whatever. But
Mm,
then the whole city goes black. And in a way, just to not veer off, but to use Watch Dogs to encapsulate what Ubisoft was. Here you had this seemingly normal, kind of almost boring idea, or at least interesting idea of you had this open world, and then they had this really cool gimmick, which was hacking, and it looked good, and Ubisoft was really good at developing hype. And in a way, that Watch Dogs trailer encapsulated what Ubisoft was. You had this really unique gimmick. You had this all these like little interesting tidbits that you were almost kind of like lost yourself in daydreaming about how fun it would be. And I was one of those people that I think I caught Watch Dogs like a few months after launch.
Mm.
Oh man, oh man, oh man.
I mean,
That
in a way, looking back at it now, a little bit jumping ahead here, but like Watch Dogs 1 almost felt like a proof of concept. You know what I mean? It felt
100% agree.
it felt flat. The world felt really lifeless.
Dead. Yeah.
It like the hacking stuff wasn't just really there. You could see they had a starting point and the basic idea. And then Watch Dogs 2, which I played more actually. I played more of that. Was all yeah, it
Wow,
was
man.
it was
Like
all
what?
right. Like the open world was all right. You're in San Francisco. It looked good. The hacking worked better than in the first game, but the writing, dude. Oh my god. I don't think I've ever played a game that had such cringy writing as Watch Dogs 2. It was like trying to play into this youth hacker culture kind of thing, right? And they were just all like, yeah, bro, what's going on, bro? And everyone wears cool masks, and it's way over the top. Like, it lost all authenticity. It felt like a theater play that was half-baked. It was absolutely horrible.
What
And
do you do? Hello Kids vibes for
yeah,
sure.
right, it just showed. So the first game, Watch Dogs 1, was also horribly written. It was not badly
Oh
written,
yeah.
but at least it had
Actually,
this main character, this guy, what is he called?
really
Aiden
poor question.
Pierce.
Oh God, I was gonna ask you if you remember his name.
Yeah, Aiden Pierce. Of course I remember. Because he's
Yeah.
the only character in this franchise, main character, that somewhat is liked in the Watch Dogs world. Like, for
Man,
example, I've
I'm
seen
very
comments. I'm
proud.
currently playing Watch Dogs Legion, right? Because it is on Game Pass, and you know why not? I live in London, so you can run around.
Literally because it's free. I'm only
Yes.
playing this game because it's
Yeah,
free.
yeah, literally. This is literally, I mean, I'm paying for the subscription, but
Oh
yes, of
God.
course, it's free. But like,
But yeah,
I've seen people saying, like, in forums on Reddit, the only good thing about Watch Dogs Legion is that if you do this and that, you can unlock Aiden Pierce as the main character. That's it. Like, that's the only good
did
thing about
people like Aiden Pierce, man? I didn't like his character at all. I thought he was. I mean, let's not
Yeah,
get
let's not
sidetracked.
let's not
Oh my
get
God.
too deep down. But
Oh
Watch Dogs
yeah,
was a pivotal moment. That was another pivotal moment.
I agree. Yeah, yeah,
The
yeah.
the trailer and then the disappointment of the actual game. You know what I mean? And then I would even go as far as saying the last game that I really respected and that was somewhat all right coming from Ubisoft. And again, if people have comments, they can leave it underneath. But like Ghost Recon Wildlands, released in 2017. Have you ever played that game?
No,
No.
I'm not a.
That was not a
But I think
bad
I've
game.
seen the game.
That game had its highlights. It was like the last Ghost Recon game, in my opinion, that worked well. Then later they did, what was the other one called that came afterwards? Something with Blackout. Was it Blackout? Ghost Recon Blackout or something?
Breakpoint.
Breakpoint. Yeah, sorry, I got it wrong, but that's the one. And that was a catastrophe. That game, in my opinion, was so bad. So 2017 Ghost Recon Wildlands was still an okay game. You could already feel, because it was obviously one of those Ubisoft formula games. Big open world, loads of markers, all the missions are kind
Yeah,
of meaningless. You just go there, kill the guys, do the thing, maybe
classic
deliver the
Ubisoft.
mission. So I think 2017 Wildlands, last game that for me at least was at least good mediocre. I don't want to say it's a good game, but it's like good mediocre. You could play it with friends, 4-player co-op, somewhat good, right? But
I would
then,
disagree. I
okay.
would disagree. I would say the last game that I personally felt like I didn't play it, but the last game that I felt like got just uh, all across great things. Never heard anyone say it's a terrible game. I've heard people say that it's not for them, or people cried about where the franchise went. Those people can suck my dick. But uh, for me, it was Assassin's Creed Odyssey. That to me was the last good Ubisoft game, in my opinion.
Yeah, You're right. You're right. The point is both Odyssey and Origins are not terrible games, right? But I guess my point is, at that point, the Ubisoft formula was already so abused
Ingrained.
and so
Yeah,
done
okay, fair.
so many times that these games are not bad on paper, and you can explore ancient Egypt and stuff, and it's somewhat cool to do that. Visually they're beautiful. Ubisoft always had good artists, but the
Yeah,
gameplay
very true.
itself already felt so flat, so generic, so repetitive. It was almost like a chore to play, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not enjoyable anymore, and that's what I'm saying. Like Ghost Recon Wildlands was the last game that I played that I actually genuinely enjoyed, because it still felt somewhat
Okay,
fresh
fair.
in 2017. But yeah, sure, everyone can have their own take on it. It also depends when you started playing these games. If you're younger, you started playing them later, you will have
I mean,
less exposure to
I
this
mean,
formula.
yeah, that's true, but I would only say that Odyssey was the second in a revitalization of a franchise. Like
Mm,
Origins took it in a completely different direction. They went full RPG. There was a lot of criticism because the hidden blade couldn't instantly kill people anymore. You actually
mm,
had to upgrade it. I see what you mean by saying it's the last, like, it didn't feel like a chore. It didn't feel like
mm,
they were just recycling. But in my opinion, I think Odyssey still kind of fits that, in that it took what Origins did, which was this, I wouldn't say huge step. Like, it's not like they were, they made it like a rail shooter or whatever,
yeah.
but they refined what Origins did. And then, you had as that one dude from, I think, the Game Awards called it, Valhalla coming out.
Yeah, right.
And yeah.
But I
And
have
dude,
not. I haven't played Odyssey, I have to admit, and I haven't played Valhalla, so
fair.
I can't comment on them too much. But all I heard was that both Valhalla and Odyssey are just so overwhelmingly big, and that they are almost the ultimate
For
perversion
sure.
of the Ubisoft formula.
Yeah.
Because like even bigger world with even more markers, and you will never.
Yeah.
It's so much, and you just get there's no focus, right? There's no we're doing this
Yeah,
thing
very
and we
true.
do it well. It is just we do a lot and we do everything mediocre. You know what I mean?
Mm,
So that's how it felt at that point. But then it gets bad. Okay, coming from Ghost Recon Wildlands 2017, 2019. Do you remember Bully Hunters?
Oh yeah, Bully Hunters. I love that shit.
That was amazing.
Oh,
So
Bully Hunters.
that was fantastic. So actually, I have a little clip. So I'm gonna play this clip right now.
Here's a top-level explanation for what may happen. While our casual gamers are playing, they may experience harassment. When that happens, we'll be alerted. They'll also call on a bully hunter. A bully hunter will jump into their game and take on harassment head on. They'll hunt down and take out the perpetrator. You heard that correctly. Bully hunters will get these harassers where it hurts them the most, by beating bullies at their own game. Will it happen tonight while you are watching? We don't know, but odds are yes, since it's already happened several times in the past 4 hours.
So that clip, we can link it in the description of this video if you want to see the whole thing. But like
legendary.
it's legendary, right?
Moment.
And it's
Gaming
it's like, how delusional is this? What do you think?
Yeah.
Do you think? Oh my god! Like there's so many flaws with this idea. I mean, I understand that it's like a nice idea, right? People get bullied online. It is unfair. It kind of sucks.
It
We
is,
all agree.
though. It's like, dude, you know what it's like? It's the gaming equivalent. Remember the Kendall Jenner, like, Pepsi ad where she stops a protest by giving a police officer a Pepsi? It's the
Yes,
gaming equivalent of that, dude. It
exactly.
is like an idea so bad, you're like, how did people okay this? Like,
Yeah,
even
exactly.
even if you play games, the amount of abuse you suffer on, like, a daily basis, you're like, I can't. Just mute them, homie. Like, it's the easiest thing. Yeah.
So it's wild, and that's also why like the program, like less than a year, I think afterwards, it was already shut down.
Dude, it was like, really, if it was like a year or close to a year, I would honestly consider that a success.
Yeah,
It
okay,
had
that's
to
probably
be a
true.
month or something, a few months, maybe. And that's being generous.
I'm going to bullyhunters.com right now. The site doesn't exist
World
anymore.
War, like,
So that was delusional, right? And like you said, it's beautiful that they have this video where they demonstrate, they stage the whole thing. They bring their
and
own
it's
bully in.
serious.
Yeah,
The best part is it's so serious.
I know they take it so serious, right? But that was already like, God, what are you guys doing? You know, what a reputational disaster that is. You know what I mean? Oh my
100%.
Oh my
100%.
God. Terrible, right? So that was already like, so now Watch Dogs has tainted their reputation. A few other games like Unity came out with bugs and stuff, and it starts to go bad.
I do kind of want to add, Assassin's Creed Syndicate, while it wasn't a bad game, it was. I remember this very distinctly because at that point, Assassin's Creed games were basically FIFA, and they had become the FIFA of Ubisoft, right? They were releasing one literally every year. And in the case of Brotherhood and Revelations, 2 in 1 year. And I remember distinctly, Syndicate was fine, and the reception of Syndicate wasn't even that negative. It was just people were like, and they added the the Ubisoft classic of like, well, let's add a new gimmick, and for Syndicate it was the grappling hook.
Yeah.
But I remember Syndicate's response was like, it's good, and that's it. Like, and then you could swap genders, but that's when Ubisoft was like, okay, we're gonna take a full year break, and they came out with Origins. So I kind of want to add Syndicate as being like a subtle bump in the road, where it wasn't like an obvious bad like Bully Hunter or Watch Dogs or Unity, but it is, in my opinion, that subtle, like the audience is beginning to not like vibe, if you will. But yeah, go on.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's kind of the time, right? So 2019, it was really starting to crumble. It didn't look good. And then also in 2019, so 2019 was a rough year for Ubisoft. I don't know what really happened there behind the scenes. Who like, for example, green-lighted Bully Hunters is wild. And then also 2019, The Division 2 was the first game that came store exclusively to the Epic Games Store. So they moved away from Steam. At that time, and I have the quote here, Ubisoft Senior Vice President for Partnerships, which is an amazing title, right? Like,
oh, wow.
He's the Senior Vice President for Partnerships and Revenue, Chris Early. He criticized Steam's business model, and more specifically, the 30% pay cut of all sales it takes, and saying it's unrealistic. Epic,
literally industry standard.
Yeah, well, Epic by comparison takes 12%, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, because they made like $1 trillion off of, like, fair, I guess, but
I think
they were losing money. They paid the price for that, but yeah, that's a different podcast.
I think what Ubisoft missed there, the problem is what they kind of failed to understand is, if you are on Steam, sure, you pay the 30%, but your sales are just 5 times as high as they are on the Epic Games Store. You reach so many more players, and with that you establish the brand. You know what I mean? If you have whatever it is, 1 million players versus 100,000 players, you have so many more people who are emotionally attached and nostalgic about the game 10 years, 12 years later, So the importance of reaching bigger audiences through Steam and temporarily paying the 30%, but you get value back afterwards, by having more people play your game.
It's the most basic cost-benefit analysis, really. So
exactly. So here they go in 2019 as well, with Division 2 only Game Store, Epic Game Store exclusive. And then obviously they reversed that shortly thereafter. In late 2022, people start to discover these hints within the back end of some of their games that it might be returning to Steam, and then lo and behold, a few days later it did. Okay, so they managed to keep that up for 3 years. For 3 years.
I would have loved to be like on that meeting where it's like, well, gentlemen, we're losing money.
Yeah,
this was a bad idea.
And I guess the biggest red flag with all of this going to Epic Games Store and talking specifically about the 30% on Steam versus 12% there, is it's already a huge red flag about greed, right? They're being greedy. They're like, we don't want to pay anything to this platform. Like, screw Gabe Newell and his platform. We want to pocket as much money for our great games as possible. So, and that's a message that people just don't like. You know what I mean? It doesn't go down well. And then also in 2019, in late 2019, so what a year for Ubisoft that was, they introduced the Quartz NFT program. For
oh my god, I remember for Rainbow Six Siege. Right?
No, it was Breakpoint. Not did they? Maybe they did something on Siege as well. It's possible. But initially it came out for Breakpoint, and it's so ironic because Ghost Recon Breakpoint was such a flop. Nobody liked or played that game. I played the closed beta. I think I was invited to that, and it really sucked. It was so bad. Even streamed it at the time. And then they had a bunch of helmets that then allegedly are stored on the blockchain, right? And it's
it was like trying to use NFTs in gaming. Yeah.
It's and I mean, you would think, okay, you know, at least it's Ubisoft. It's a big company. Surely they would farm some profits from that. Well, guess what? They didn't. This whole Quartz NFT program allegedly made $400 altogether. That's the money that made. So,
Oh my.
which is insane,
It's like
right?
I want it to be. Can you imagine walking into that boardroom? It's like, guys, I have a great idea. This game that we've released, it's dying. It's dying bad. No one's playing it. But you know what will bring them back? Microtransactions. And you know what? Crypto-based microtransactions.
Yes,
It
it's
can't fail.
and
Thanks, John.
it's actually amazing because obviously the idea of an NFT is that you store a piece of art or whatever in the blockchain and it increases value, right? You could imagine it for games like maybe Counter-Strike, right, where you, I don't know, you have a unique knife and these
Yes.
knives sometimes cost 10 grand.
Yeah.
So you store it in the blockchain, it's linked to your name and your account and nobody can steal it from you or whatnot. But with like a game like Ghost Recon Breakpoints, it's just fell flat so hard. Like, what an absolute disaster. So that was 2019. Bully Hunters, Epic Games Store exclusives, and Quartz NFT program, right? And it's like, oh, Jesus Christ,
And
dude.
just to add to what you're saying, if you look at the stock price for Ubisoft Entertainment, uh, their peak was July mid 2018, and then there's just a severe dip in late 2019.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
And then it gets back to normal, and then 20 and I quite like contrary to a lot of tech companies, 2020 is the beginning of an extreme downfall for them
Yeah.
that they never recovered from. But
Yeah, it gets brutal. Like if I'm looking at the stock price right now, like around 2021, it just declines. And at that time, the high point of their stock, the value was 85 euros. It currently sits at 13 euros. That's in 4 years, man. In 4 years, they go from that to that. That's wild, wild stuff. And then on top of all of that, obviously, because it always can get worse, in October 2024,
yeah, with Ubisoft, it can absolutely get worse. Yeah.
5 former Ubisoft executives arrested after harassment investigation, you know.
Yeah, I remember
That
this.
was not good as well. I mean, to be honest, stuff like this happened industry wide. At that time, we had like, what was it at Activision, the frat boy culture accusation. Many people in many studios were walking out and basically saying that this kind of culture exists in many places. But obviously, Ubisoft wasn't spared from that. So that came forward as well. And then January 2024, Philippe Tremblay, the director of subscriptions, another amazing title, the director of subscriptions, dude. I wonder if he still is the director of subscriptions at Ubisoft because like he messed up, bro, big time. Let me see if he still is. Yeah, he still is. Apparently,
Nice.
he kept his job because in January 2024, he's the guy who came forward and basically said gamers have to get comfortable with not owning their games, right? Legendary.
That genius. Yeah.
And people often say it's been taken out of context, but actually it's not really. If you look at the interview, it's not really taken out of context. That's what he said. So
I mean, you could say like, oh, what he meant is like, no, man, you can't even defend it.
yeah,
Because,
right,
I remember the
That's the
context.
thing.
You really can't because the context he was talking about, like, oh, well, as subscriptions become more popular, then it's just going to be the main way people play games. No context can save this man.
Yeah, that's it. I think the context in his mind was like you don't buy a box anymore, you put in your shelf, but instead you buy it digitally on Steam, on Ubisoft Plus or whatever it's called, or on Epic Game Store. If that shuts down at some point or they remove the game 20 years later, then you're not owning it anymore. But even then, it's like, dude, you are the director of subscriptions. You have a communication responsibility. You know, you gotta watch your words, dude. You can't say things like that. And if you want to say it, great, but then think carefully about how you package that into words. Like, it's just, he just walks into a mine, like a bear trap. He just steps into it. Insane.
And this is also like just a broader issue about business people who are just cold-hearted business people. And I don't say cold-hearted to be mean. They're just like, you know, they're just business people saying business words in a business context with no tact whatsoever.
Yeah.
And honestly, why the fuck is he even like speaking to any fucking report? Like, just do your job, homie.
Yeah,
What
man.
the-
That's right. Focus on your subscriptions. Focus. I'm sure that Ubisoft Plus or whatever their little service is could
Oh
use a
yeah,
few
that's
more
terrible.
subscribers, you know? So
That's terrible.
just focus on that. So it's a good point, right? These people, why are they even talking to the press? Absolutely insane. So here we are in 2024, and now obviously, you know, Ghost Shadows is out, and they try to save it. They had, like I said earlier, like just in 2023, 494 million euros, you know, net loss. So where can they go from here? And then on top of all of that, I guess just to kind of conclude the whole thing, is there was a whole bunch of games that they produced, that they created, that took years and millions of development cost, that
Oh
either
yeah, I
never
forgot.
came out or just die upon impact,
Yeah.
right? Like
X Defiant. Rest in peace.
X-Defiant, right? Brutal
pissed.
COD clone, Call of Duty clone, ran for about a year. I think they're shutting it down this year in June or something. In June, July is
Well,
the...
they're not shutting it down, they're sunsetting it.
Oh, yeah.
It's different.
It's unbelievable that they say this, right? Even that, and I talked about this in a live stream previously, even Ubisoft thinks they have these press people, right? Like communication people, and they come up with this idea to say, you know, we're not shutting it down, we're sunsetting it, and everyone's like, wow, Steve, that's such a good idea. That's how we're going to phrase it. And they are so detached from the reality of gamers. Anyone who hears this, it's like, even you don't like the game, it's like, dude, who are you fooling? Like, what are you doing here? You know what I mean?
Raw business rhetoric. This is some shit you say to be like, please. This is something you say, and then quietly in your mind, like, please don't let the stock price fall. Please don't let the stock price
Exactly,
fall. You know what I'm
right?
saying? Like,
It's so obviously crawling up the ass of their investors and people, and so obviously clearly detached from the gamers, from the people who actually buy their games, that it's like, it's a huge red flag. Just that phrasing alone is like, dude, you are in a completely different world. You don't know what it means to make video games anymore. Insane, right? Ghost Recon Frontline, another game, a brutal Warzone clone, which is really, really ironic, right? Because they cloned Warzone. I played that in the closed beta. That game never came out, but which is also insane, because when I played the closed beta, it was actually almost finished. They had a big island you could play with loads of locations, weapons. You could press the same button as in Call of Duty Warzone to replenish the armor plates in your chest, right? Like you push them in.
that's absolutely insane.
It was
man.
insane. It
Like,
was a one-to-one clone, but it ran on their, what is it called, Snowdrop engine, and it felt like garbage. That was the problem. It felt really bad.
what a shitty name for an engine, by the way.
Yeah,
You got the Snowdrop engine.
Snowdrop engine.
Jesus.
Look, I don't hate the Snowdrop engine. I think, for example, for the Division, it worked pretty well. Division 2, you know, these kind of single-player-esque games.
I'm not gonna lie. The Division is a franchise that never enticed me whatsoever. So
I
it's all you.
liked.
in the
I played it for the first. I played the first game for the setting. I liked the empty and derelict New York in the snow with all the Christmas decorations still up. Like, I thought that was such a nice world to explore. But again, it was soulless. It felt really bad. And then every 50 meters you would walk, and like a group of villains would spawn, and then you have to get into a battle. I would have hoped it would be much more sparse in terms of enemies and just much more exploration. Like,
That's another thing. I remember seeing gameplay footage of the Division, and I think the Division 2. They're just the bullet sponges and people throwing grenades, and there's just fat dude, and literally like wearing a hoodie. Like, I couldn't see armor or anything. It was just some dude in a hoodie and some cargo shorts. I was just like eating bullets for breakfast, and I was like, I'm good.
yeah, no, it's true. They weren't great games. I kind of like them, but again, they're already way beyond the point where I'm enjoying Ubisoft games. I kind of played them, but much more for the world and the visuals, I guess. So 2021, Ghost Recon Frontline never comes out. That game, as I played it, was basically finished. Definitely swallowed some money. 2024, Skull and Bones. Okay.
Oh my! I completely forgot about the absolute legend that is Assassin's Creed 4 2.
Right. Like, this is in and of itself, Skull and Bones is unbelievable, because the ship battle mechanic in Black Flag is so much fun.
It's absurd.
It's
it is
great.
legitimately everything about Skull and Bones is so, like, if it was in a cartoon or a film, you'd be like, okay, well, this is too much. Dude, the models, it looks like something You ever play Clay Fighter? It looks like Clay Fighter. Like, oh my god, I
I mean,
can't.
it's
And dude,
just
like Assassin's Creed 4 had a multiplayer. I don't
yes, yes.
understand. Dude,
They had
man.
everything. They had the full deck of winning cards on their hand with the combat and also the land, right? You could walk on land in Black
Yeah.
Flag and stuff, and then go on the ship seamlessly, take over enemy ships and stuff. It was so much fun. It worked so well, and I think it had Skull and Bones had an 11-year development phase. I'm sure it wasn't full on in development for
Hell.
that whole time,
Oh yeah.
but it was more or less development hell, and they've just creative directed that game into oblivion. I don't even want to know how many creative directors were on that game trying to save it, trying to tweak it, go this direction, that direction. And after 11 years, it's just a car crash. It's a wild game. And I mean, that came out in 2024. And I think, to be honest, this was one of the games, because there are other games that they, like, for example, Frontline, Ghost Recon Frontline, where they basically pulled the plug and they said, okay, we just never released this game. Skull and Bones, they had to release it. They had to release
why
it.
release Skull and Bones when Frontlines is so clearly more finished? I don't.
Well, to be honest, they were probably both equally medium finished. You know, yeah.
Damn.
It's just, the point is, I think they looked at Skull and Bones. They were like, bro, it's been in development for 11 years. We cannot can this game. We have to at least. Yes. It's just like they evaluated the damage it would do to their brand, and the little bit of revenue they will make with it. And then they decided we have to release this one, because there are so many other games that either never came out or died upon impact in recent years. So they couldn't afford to not release Skull and Bones. They had to release it and at least recoup some of that money. Then also, when did this game come out? Ubisoft.
February.
No, I'm just looking for another. So Rainbow Six Extraction.
Oh,
You remember that?
Vague memory of this.
That came out 2022, so we're actually going back a little bit. But this came out in 2022. It was like a weird Rainbow Six game with like a strange. I'm not saying aliens. I didn't play it, but there was like this weird organic mass and stuff everywhere, and like buildings were taken over by these alien structures. It was super strange. Nobody played it. I've looked up the player numbers. Like the peak, the all-time peak. You can have a guess. Rainbow Six Extraction, right? Coming out 2022. I said that right? Yeah, 2022. How many? What do you think on Steam charts? So only on Steam.
All time.
All-time peak for that game.
Okay, I'll go 15 to 25K.
2,300 players.
Oh my.
And that game, I mean,
wow.
And that game wasn't even considered a huge flop, right? I mean, sure, nobody played it and stuff, but it kind of came and went. But it was not like that people say, oh my god, Extraction, what a horrible mess. It didn't have
notoriety.
Yeah, it doesn't have the notoriety as like a brutal flop, so to say. So 2,000 players. Currently, around 90 people are still playing it around the world. 90 people is the 24-hour peak.
Who are those 90 people?
Yeah.
I would like to interview all of them.
Yes. What is their story, right? What happened? Where did they go wrong? What has the world done to them? So that's another one, right?
They're all bots. That's the twist. They're just all bots.
Mm-hmm. It could be that they're just all bots, but that's another one. Rainbow Six Extraction. Like, what a disaster. And then obviously also 2024... X-Defiant, we spoke about it briefly, ran for a year. It's about to be shut down.
Yeah, sunsetted. Don't forget.
It's been sunsetted, you're right. And then, last but not least, the big title, where already everyone was like, before Assassin's Creed Shadows, everyone was like, this game has to hit. It's got to be the big one for Ubisoft. If this one doesn't hit, it is Star Wars Outlaws. Coming out 2024. Also fell brutally behind expectations. Even the initial reviews were like not disastrous.
They were like, it's okay.
Yeah, exactly. People were like, it's okay. You know, it's not terrible.
But
but
they needed another Origins. Basically, they needed this slam dunk that revitalized them. And it was okay. The writing was awful, though.
It was okay, but here's my theory, right? By the point that we reach Star Wars Outlaws, people are already so fed up and so and I can include myself here. I'm part of this as well. I am so tired of Ubisoft and what they do. I just look at this gameplay. I am bored. I am bored out of
Yeah,
my mind. And I
100%.
intentionally do not want to support this game. You know, I don't want to
Yeah,
play it. I don't want to support it. I don't want to give them a single cent for a game like that because it's so lazy. It's so repetitive. It's so dull. And it's just,
yeah. And to add to that, I think Outlaws also. I think Skull and Bones people laughed at it like it is a humiliation. Like
yes.
it's one of those games you really. I mean this from the bottom of my heart. It's one of those games that you really have to look up to believe how bad it is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think Outlaws people stopped laughing at Ubisoft and genuinely like by Skull and Bones killed any and all goodwill. By Outlaws, it became genuine malice,
Yes.
in my opinion.
Yes, exactly. It at some point it swung over into malice, and it's at
Mhm.
this point now, and that's also I think what Assassin's Creed Shadows is struggling with. People
Yeah, I
want to
agree.
see Ubisoft fail. People
I agree.
want, no matter, you know, it could have been the next coming of Christ, Assassin's Creed Shadows. It
Yeah,
could have
it
been
doesn't
the.
matter
It
anymore.
doesn't matter
Yeah.
anymore. We're beyond that point. You know, people want to see the company fail. People want to see blood on the floor. It is. They have
Yeah,
fucked up
exactly.
so many times over those years that it is beyond the point of repair, and they just can't save it anymore. There is no coming back from that. So
Yeah.
yeah,
It is really unfortunate. Yeah, I 100% agree. Even if like let's say in this hypothetical universe like Origins was delayed or like Shadows just so happened to be like Origins and reinvigorated the whole franchise, I don't even think then it's the kind of negativity Ubisoft has now is reminiscent of the kind of negativity EA had in
mm,
like the late 2010s or so. It is really really bad. And EA, another studio that's just having, stepping on rake after rake, but that's
yeah,
another story.
that's
But
really
yeah.
true. But that's a different podcast. We have to break that down in a different one. I found this little quote that I can read out here, which I think put it really well. It's not long. I found it on Reddit in a discussion about Ubisoft, and this guy said, somewhere along the line, they got scared, they stopped experimenting and stuck to the same formula. Then they doubled
True.
down and applied the 1001 collectible in a huge open world formula to all their main IPs. When
Yeah.
sales started to fall off, instead of looking to change the strategy, they looked at increasing the monetization with microtransactions and additional versions offering early access and an assortment of extras. When that wasn't enough, they got extreme, looking at jumping on any bandwagon from Battle Royale to NFT, each time lowering quality and racing out an unfinished product. And I think that's exactly what it is. This is
100%.
putting it really nicely. This is exactly what it is. They had chances along the way to change their strategy, to realize, look, guys, people are getting so tired of this formula, but they're doing it over and over and over again. And you could even make the point to say they are doing it again with Assassin's Creed Shadows. It is, again, I haven't played it, but I've been following it. It is still like, I see a lot of people talking about the graphics. Everyone's like, oh my God, look
Yeah.
how his dress is flapping in the wind. And it's like,
It doesn't
awesome.
look that good to me. I'm not gonna lie.
It looks all right. I think visually it is quite a step up from the previous games, but the point is
Oh,
that's not what it needs. It doesn't need a
yeah, very
visual
true.
step up. It needs to move away from these 1001 collectibles in a huge open world and
100%.
meaningless missions. I mean, look at, for example, The Witcher 3. Such an old
Yeah.
game, but everyone who played that remembers side missions. You're like, oh my God, I
Yeah.
went there and I went that location and I couldn't believe it and that
Perfect.
character. None of
The one
that.
with the Duke and the unborn son.
I
If I
know.
remember that
Yes, I
correctly.
remember
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
yeah,
Right. So
yeah.
that
Very.
love to characters, that love to side missions, that's what Ubisoft needs. They don't need bigger open worlds and more collectibles. They just need that love to the
They need
story.
games with games with personality, basically. Like the games need to stop feeling like they're identical twins of each other.
Yeah.
Uh, and even just to also add to what Shadows is, even if you go back to the wording of it, because Valhalla, because that's what I'll forever call it. Valhalla was also one of those games that genuine malice showed. Like people just did not like that game, which was super interesting to me because Odyssey, Origins did great, Odyssey did great, and then Valhalla comes out, and it's just like a fucking shit hitting the wall, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
then and Shadows, in the lead up to Shadows are like, we're going back to basics, and I'm just like, ooh, that's
Yeah.
really not what you should be doing. But yeah,
Yeah.
also I'd like to add, Ubisoft games looking good, even if it's a step up, that is expected. Like, Ubisoft games looking bad isn't really something they've ever struggled with.
Yeah.
Obviously, you had Unity, but even now, Unity after being fixed, it's gorgeous. Um, and graphics generally have just basically plateaued since like 2015, 2018.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
but yeah, but no,
it seems like they're doing these games and they design them visually to cut trailers out of them. That's what it is. It's not about
yeah,
making a good game. It's about, can we cut a good trailer out of this footage?
the creation of photo mode and its consequences.
Yeah,
I agree.
yeah. So it's disastrous. And I mean, I guess maybe as a final word, I hear as well left and right that over the past 3-4 years, Ubisoft is brutally losing talent. People are
Yeah,
leaving or people are being fired because now they already started to shut down a bunch of
both.
studios recently,
Yeah,
right?
both.
So
Yeah,
people are
yeah, yeah,
leaving
yeah.
because obviously, like, you work for 3 years on Skull and Bones, the games comes out. That doesn't look good in your portfolio. You work on
Yeah,
Rainbow Six Extraction or Ghost Recon Frontline. You work for 4 years there. You have nothing to show for it, right? So
yeah. That's the worst, man.
you know,
That's the
it's
worst.
horrible. So I would also be like, I need to be in a studio where if I work on something, at least maybe the game is not the biggest success, but I can say, look, I worked on whatever it is, God of War or something. So gives me better job opportunities. So they're bleeding talent. And I think going back to some of the early games where Assassin's Creed was still good, whether it's Assassin's Creed 2, Rayman Origins, which lives drastically off the art, right? It's so gorgeous because
Yeah.
it's beautiful art. Even Black Flag and the early Assassin's Creed games, they had good writing. It was always very convoluted, right? With the Apple of Eden or whatever it was. Like, it was always a bit strange, but at least,
Don't get into Assassin's Creed lore.
yeah,
No.
I know you can't
I
even
agree.
really.
I agree.
But still, Assassin's Creed 2 was well written. You know, it was good dialogue. You
Absolutely.
enjoyed the dialogue. It made somewhat sense. And even that, like, the art doesn't feel up to par anymore where it used to be in terms of its
For
creativity.
sure.
The writing has really fallen off a cliff. I would off a cliff,
Gone.
starting
Yeah.
from Watch Dogs brutally.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so final conclusion: what do you think will happen to Ubisoft?
If they're gonna get bought out, I don't really see anything else. I mean, what can they make? They can't make another. And by the way, Assassin's Creed Shadows, that's four. It's released. Yeah, yeah. That's 5 years after Valhalla,
Hmm.
which was I think 2020. 5 years, man. That's that we're looking at Bethesda numbers. If we're making one game every 5 years.
Yeah,
Um, so I don't what other franchise do they have? It feels like all their major franchises are either canceled, not being used, or are just not loved. They're tired. In a way, the formula they've had is just they've oversaturated themselves. It's kind of interesting, vaguely connected. It's kind of like if you're head of Star Wars, what do you do right now?
yeah,
It feels like the series, there's just too much of it.
yeah.
Uh, how can you and Ubisoft is there's just so what are they gonna do? Just stop being I don't know. I feel like they're gonna get bought out by I guess by Tencent, but I don't know. Maybe Europe might be protectionist, but
So the one
I don't
thing
know.
you can do with something like Star Wars, and I guess also with Ubisoft, is you can make yourself sparse, but obviously you make no money. So that
Yeah,
would
but
be my
yeah,
advice for Star Wars Disney. Just don't do anything for 8 years. No
yeah,
Star Wars
actually, and I
show,
agree,
no
but
movie. But obviously
yeah,
now you're losing money. You don't want that, right? But that's
no
what
one's
they
gonna
would.
do that.
No one's going to do that exactly.
Yeah.
So I mean, the other scenario that exists for Ubisoft beyond being bought out by Tencent as a whole is that they are selling franchises because I read that at the moment the Guillemot brothers, they want to keep creative authority
Control.
or creative control over the brands and whatever they do, and Tencent is not going to
Why?
let that slip. Yeah, because they're egomaniacs and they founded the company. This is their baby, right? I looked it up. They founded it. I read this article. They were in a completely different business. Amazing. You go to Yves Guillemot's website. It mostly talks about the sexual misconduct. This is great.
Nice.
Yeah.
Way to go. Give that coder a raise.
Yeah, exactly. That's what it all boils down to. So they founded it in 1986, right? So think about
Wow.
that. Like, this is their
That's
baby,
wow, that is way, way older than I thought.
right? It's really 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 old. So, And they, again, I can't look it up now. I don't know what it was, but they came from a completely different business. And then in 1986, they were like, listen, there's this thing on the rise, video games. Have you heard about that? And so they looked into it and they founded the company. And I mean, to be honest, if you go back to the heydays of it, they did spawn and create something that was very successful, that was very beloved by a lot of people. They created all these franchises, right? Like from Assassin's Creed to Splinter Cell, all the Ghost Recon games and all the Tom Clancy stuff. Like there's a lot there that a lot of people really love. So I can understand why the Guillemot brothers say, we will sell the company and the franchises to Tencent, but we want to keep a level of creative control. It is their pride, you know what I mean? It's their pride. Whether it's right is a different question, but I can see where they're coming from. And the other scenario, I guess, that's only optional is, or the other option is that they sell franchises. That they basically sell,
okay. Yeah, I see that actually.
They sell
Selling
Splinter
IPs?
Cell. They sell IPs. That's it. Or they let other people give the license to an Assassin's Creed game or to a Splinter Cell game or the Tom Clancy stuff.
Can you imagine if they sell the Splinter Cell IP to PlayStation, and then Kojima just makes Metal Gear Solid 6
Oh my god.
using it? And by the way, just to add a sense of time, when Ubisoft was created in 1986, the first Legend of Zelda was released, and the very first Castlevania was released, along with Metroid. Like, making a video games company in 1986 is basically the equivalent of, like, buying Bitcoin in 2001.
Yes, exactly. So they were really early to the game. They really understood it as a business opportunity, and they grew it into one of the biggest companies now. I mean, on the internet, I think it still says they have
of all time, or at least in the gaming sphere, at least.
Let me look it up. Employee count, 23,000 employees across 6 continents. I don't think it's this much anymore. I mean, this is a number from 2025, so it is very recent.
Oh, okay, that's recent. Okay.
But still, like, I'm not sure how accurate it is, but it's a huge company. So again, they will not go under very quickly. They have a lot of room to shrink as well. They can say we're just shutting down 8 studios or whatever, and then it's just like 8,000 employees suddenly, and the whole operation becomes much more. So that's another option, that they either shrink down, they sell IPs, or they get bought out as a whole. I think that's, I don't know which one it is.
It might be they do have one franchise. They do have one golden goose that's laying like Atlas holding the heavens. And that franchise is Rabbids. So when they release the new Rabbids game, you and I will be eating our words, homie.
True, but wait a second. Is Rabbids, is it not inherently connected to Mario? Are there...
No. Okay, Rabbids is 100%. Yeah.
It's their thing.
Do you know that there was a Rabbids show on Nickelodeon? And I will not elaborate further.
Oh, God. That sounds like a mistake in and of itself.
It's exactly as artistically elevated as you think it is.
Oh, Jesus. Yeah, wow. So, yeah, I don't dare to speculate which one of these options it will be for Ubisoft, but I guess...
I think selling the franchises will definitely... I think if the Guillemot brothers are that... Like, okay, I see what you mean. They're that obsessed by it, then yeah. But they might see their franchises as like their grandchildren. They're French. They have no limits to their audacity.
Well, they can choose now. They can choose to sell everything to Tencent and basically lose most of the creative control, or they sell a few franchises and lose creative control there. Which one will
They'll never sell Rabbids, let me tell you. Never.
But that's
They're
what
like,
I mean.
Far Cry, Prince of Persia, take them. But Rabbids,
they have other franchises like Beyond Good and Evil, for example, right?
Wow, I haven't heard about that game in years. Wow.
So they already teased Beyond Good and Evil 2. They even had gameplay and everything. At E3 they showed it, but it never came out, and I'm pretty sure at this point it's on ice. But I mean, that's another. I think that's originally like a PS2 thing, right? Beyond Good and Evil was a PS2 game.
The greatest console of all time. That's another podcast.
That's a whole different podcast. But I mean, they showed the gameplay, and that's an IP that, it's not like Assassin's Creed or Far Cry or something that is very close and dear to their heart. It feels like they could sell Beyond Good and Evil somewhere, make a few million of that.
Revitalize it,
Yeah, revitalize it.
Do you know when they originally announced it?
What, Beyond Good and Evil 2?
Beyond Good and Evil 2, yeah.
Let me guess. I think 2017.
So that you're correct. I'll give you it on a technicality. That was the re-reveal. The
Okay.
original announcement was 2008.
You know what I mean.
So, yeah, that's our thoughts on Ubisoft. That's our idea of where it's going. Godspeed to them. Rest in
Godspeed to the
peace.
Guillemot brothers. Rest in peace, Ubisoft. May God rest your souls. You know what I mean? Like, you had a good run, but it's over now, bro. It's over.